Good afternoon. It's Monday, 1 o'clock. It's time for the Deal Doctor live stream. Welcome. I'm glad that you could join us. And before I get started, I want to remind everyone that Con Ed is available to you from the Resource Center. You can log in. I know that a lot of you have already taken the course. I'm actually going to take it myself tomorrow, which ought to be interesting. I wonder if I'm going to pass. I'm not sure. But since I wrote it, I guess gives me a leg up on it. So between Eric and I we put it together. So anyway, glad that thank you for those of you who have said it was easy to use and that it was informative and you enjoyed doing it. That means a lot to all of us who worked on it so hard. Now, we got a number of questions last week, some that we've heard before, and some others. And so I thought I want to go back and recap some of these questions that came into Eric and Kim and I and Tracy and Doug and Paul and Greg. And so the first one I'm going to address is a post that was on Facebook about Facebook Connect, about an agent who, a listing agent who shared all of the information of competitive offers prior to, as I understand it, prior to accepting any offers. And the way it appeared, apparently, is that the agent, the listing agent, was saying, here's our offers. If you want to try and beat one of these offers, go right ahead. Again, that's my assumption. Then the thread started, and the comments were various. They were kind of all over the place. But one of the big questions was, that I came away with, is it illegal or unethical for a listing agent to provide specific details of competing offers before any offer is accepted? Is the agent then required, if they do, is the agent required to also share those details with all of the agents who submitted offers? And the answer to both of those questions is no. No, it is not illegal or unethical for an agent to share the details, the specifics of offers with the agents who wrote offers, provided that the seller has given the listing agent permission, preferably in writing, because you better be able to prove that if you start down that path. Yes, the information would normally be covered under confidentiality, under agency law, but if the seller says, no, I'm good with you sharing all of these offers, all of the details of these offers with the agents who are competing and writing offers out there because it might drive up the price, go ahead. I'd get it in writing. But that's perfectly acceptable. It's not illegal. It's not unethical by any standard. But let me give you a little bit of back story, history, if you will. A long time ago, like 10 years. The listing agents rarely disclose the details of competing offers because it showed their cards. Why would you tell a buyer's agent that you have two offers for $130,000 or $150,000 when the third buyer may write an offer for $165,000? You're showing your hand, if you will. But today we're in a completely different market. If a listing agent has 10 offers in his or her hands, all of them $20,000 or more over the asking price, the agent has a number of options. Number one, the agent may call for highest and best. That's a choice. It's not necessary. Some agents make it their standard practice, and that's perfectly okay. You don't have to do that. The agent may also counter any single offer. They may pick one out of the 20 and say, we're going to counter this offer with specific terms, price, possessions to be included, and so on, and send it back to that buyer and see if they will accept it. If there are multiple escalation clauses, the agent may reject the escalation clause language in its entirety and counter at a specific price. In other words, if the escalation reaches $250,000, for example, the agent may say, regardless of escalation costs, seller rejects the escalation clause language, but hereby counters at a price of $250,000. They can do that. The agent may also tell the best offers what they are, tell what the other best offers are in order to give them the opportunity to beat those offers that are already on the table. There's nothing illegal or unethical about it so long as the listing agent has the permission of the seller to share that information. And once again, I hope you have it in writing. Another question came up. How do I protect my buyer when they have entered into a contract with a builder? Should I include the language, buyer to do a walkthrough prior to closing? And I hope you all know me by now well enough to say that my first question is, what are the consequences of the walkthrough prior to closing? But let's go back first of all to the purchase agreement that they signed with the builder. Most builders, many builders anyway, use their own purchase agreements. You have to read them, understand them, and be able to communicate what they mean to the buyer before the buyer signs them. What are the consequences, for example, if you put in that it's subject to the buyer's walkthrough prior to closing? Does that give the buyer the right to terminate the contract? It doesn't say that. It's not a consequence that is stated in that clause. Would the buyer agree to that in this market? Probably not. Hang on. I love how they throw these like reinstallation. Oh, good. I just lost everything. Okay, got rid of that. Have you read the clauses in dot loop? I'm sorry. Would the builder agree to that clause that said is subject to a walkthrough prior to closing, and if the buyer doesn't approve the condition of the property, the buyer has a right to walk away? Well, in this market, a builder is probably not going to agree to that, to have all of this investment there, but if it's not acceptable, that the buyer can walk the day before the closing, or the morning of the closing. What might be a better option is that they have the right to review the specifications package that the builder intends to put in. What are the allowances for lighting? Is there any allowance for landscaping? What kind of countertops are they going to put in? And so on. A specifications package is a list of, an itemized list of the things that are going to go into the house and the level of quality and so on. And if you look at the clauses that we have for you in dot loop, you'll find that there's a clause regarding new construction and the buyer receiving and reviewing a specifications package from a builder. So that's really important. Again, if you've not gone through dot loop and reviewed all of the clauses that we made available to you, I urge you to do so, because there may be a time that you need to use one of those things and you may not be able to reach a deal doctor or your mentor or whatever, but it's there for you. So go and see what's there, because it will be helpful to you. Another question we got is, my buyer has a mobile home to sell in order to buy a new home? Does she need a purchase agreement? Well, let's first of all talk about the fact that a manufactured home or mobile home, which is in a park or on land but not affixed with the title abandoned, is still personal property. So you don't have a license to sell mobile homes that are in parks, nor do you have a license to sell mobile homes that are sitting on an acre of land out in the country but have not gone through the process of the affidavit of fixture and the abandonment of title in order to become real estate. Therefore, that property, that parcel with a mobile home on it, is only actually worth the value of the land. Now, that's probably not what anyone intended. So an offer could be created between the buyer and the seller that includes the land, but also has a chattel agreement that includes the personal property of the mobile home. For example, and if you're going to be involved with it as the agent, you can be involved with it from the standpoint of the land sale. But obviously, if it's in a park, that's not going to have any impact. Now, I know a few of you have a Michigan manufactured home dealer's license, and if you would be so kind, raise your hand, let everybody know that you have a mobile home, a Michigan manufactured home retail dealer's license, because then you can sell mobile homes. And it may be a referral that somebody can help you with. So the question goes back to, though, does she need a purchase agreement in order to make the offer on a new property contingent upon that sale? And the answer is, I would. I think that's the best approach, because a verbal sale for that trailer, a mobile home, may not hold up. So I would probably put it in some form of agreement, probably done between the buyer and seller. Again, unless there's land involved in which you can become involved in it then, and put the language down that would be appropriate, that buyer's going to buy this for cash and close at such and such a time. Now you've got a document that you can provide to the listing agent of the house that your buyers want to buy and get that house off the market, and make it go pending because you are delivering an underlying offer. It may be so simple as having a chattel agreement drawn up about the mobile home and what is going to be included in the sale of personal property. Another question. I have a listing and an unrepresented buyer who wants me to write up an offer. I want to cut my commission to eliminate the buyer co-brokerage offering of 3% of the sales price that is listed on the multiple listing. How do I do that? And here's my caution. When you do that, when you consider doing that, you are entering into an undisclosed dual commission arrangement or variable rate commission. Different language for West Michigan Regional Purchase Agreement versus GCAR, for example. In order to do so without violating the multiple listing rules, you must disclose that agreement on the listing contract and on the MLS. If during the course of presenting the offer, other offers come in which pay a buyer's agent's fee, by cutting that commission from the buyer's co-brokerage offering, you've created an unlevel playing field without disclosing it. it's a cause for grievance complaint with any of the MLSs. Now, I want to be clear that we are not talking about dual agency. You may still represent a seller, and have a dual commission arrangement / variable rate commission, provided it is agreed upon in the listing contract and disclosed on the MLS. Okay, moving on. Any questions so far? Okay, good. Clauses. Again, I urge you to go to the clauses section of .loop. It's very easy. If you hit the icon that says that are the templates, and then you go to the left and all the way down the bottom on the left-hand side, past where all the forms files are, you'll see a little blue hyperlink that says clauses. When you open that up, there'll be a whole page of clauses that have been written for you for a variety of circumstances: escalation clauses, appraisal guarantees, construction specifications packages, seller's concessions, and so on. So I urge you to go through and read those and print them if necessary, so that you can keep them handy when you write an offer, that you can, it will actually ghost in to .loop when you start typing that particular clause, or you can cut and paste it into your electronic document. But sometimes if you have it handy on a couple pages, you can go, oh yeah, that's the one I'm looking for, and go and find it in clauses and put it in. Another question we got last week was terminating a contract. Let's take the example. There are a lot of reasons to terminate contracts from both sides. In this particular case, the end date of the original contract had passed. And so the agent said, you know, what the buyer's agent has submitted an extension of the contract. What do I do? And my answer was, what does your seller want to do? Well, they've been at this quite a while. They have a backup offer that's for more money, and they want actually to terminate and take the other offer because they don't believe that the first buyer is going to get financed. Okay, well, the first step is the seller has to take action. They cannot simply sit back and play kick the can down the road. There are a lot of reasons that buyers or sellers can terminate contracts, like, for example, the inspection contingency, the title work contingency, the survey contingency, well and septic contingency. Whatever the reason, we take a two-step approach, a two-form termination process. And that is, one, an addendum terminating the purchase agreement due to something, and a mutual release. The reason is this. Number one, the addendum to terminating the purchase agreement is a unilateral termination. For example, in this case where I mentioned that the seller is terminating the contract because they've passed the end date, the buyer hasn't gotten financing, they're hoping that they might get financing 3 or 4 weeks from now, but they're no closer to it than they were 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the seller says, yeah, I don't really want to do that. I've got a backup offer right now. I don't want to risk losing that while these people have been unable to get financing. But again, they have to take some action, so they fill out an addendum terminating the contract and send it over. And then they can send over the mutual release. Here's why. The mutual release is not an enforceable document until it is signed by all parties, including the broker. Therefore, you can send over a mutual release, they don't sign it, and you may have still a contract which is enforceable. By sending the addendum over, the unilateral release, based on the ability to do that, for example, in the inspections contingency, it establishes the buyer's or seller's position that they want this terminated now and not just linger along and behave as if they're still acting in good faith to get this contract closed. When these things kind of wind up in court, the biggest factor that judges will look at is what is the intention. If the intention was to, well, let's play along with it, kick the can down the road and see what happens, maybe it'll close, maybe they'll get their financing and we won't have to start over. If that is the behavior, then the seller is just as much at fault for allowing that to continue as is the buyer. So when you have a deadline coming up, make sure you get an extension before it runs out. And if you can't do that, then, and if it's a seller or a buyer who wants to terminate based on, let's say, the results of the inspection report, or the Schedule A and B in title work shows something that is that they don't feel comfortable with. Maybe it's an easement, maybe it's mineral rights, who knows what. But if they have the right to terminate the contract, they have to take action, either party. They can't simply allow it to float along without doing something. And so, I think that may be all the questions that the main questions that we got. Let's see. Still no questions, Tom?
We just got one. I'm pasting it in for you.
What are you pasting it in for?
I'm putting it on the question list that we have. Or do you not have that pulled up?
I will shortly.
It's from Timothy Wright.
Here's Simone. We'll be right with you.
Getting it? It's a Google Doc.
Yep, got it.
Good.
Okay. Tim Wright asks something. There it is. If my buyer sends over an addendum to terminate the contract, followed by a mutual release, and the seller refuses to sign, it depends, Timothy, on why they are terminating the contract. For example, let's pretend for a moment, and if you can answer that question, do so now. But let's pretend for a moment that it's because of what they found in inspections. They found some information in inspections that they didn't like, didn't feel comfortable with, and so they decided to terminate the contract. And then they sent over a mutual release saying, we want our EMD released. What I'm guessing is that you're more concerned or more focused here about the seller refusing to sign the mutual release, and therefore your buyer doesn't get their money back. And there is a process, because you're right, they won't. The process is that we will then send out a 15-day letter to all parties saying that if we get no written objection, we're going to send the buyer their money back, give the buyer the money back, because we've terminated the contract. If we do get a written objection from the seller that no, we're going to challenge this disbursement, then we have to operate under escrow law. we are operating under escrow law from the moment, in Michigan, from the moment we take that EMD into our deposit, into our trust account. So, if the 15-day letter doesn't work, then it's going to have to be a battle between the two parties. One party is going to have to sue the other one, generally in small claims court, unless it's over like $5,500 or $6,000, I can't remember. But at that point, they're going to have to solve the problem and do it through a court action since they're unable to come to an agreement according to the mutual release. Does that help you, or is there more question there?
Well, he says it was because of the survey results.
Okay, so yeah, if the survey showed something different than what they thought they were getting, then yes, they would have the right to terminate the contract. Can you tell us why the seller is refusing to sign the contract?
It's going to take a minute for this to get up to the stream, so.
It's going to take a minute for this to get up to the stream, Dom says. It goes to a satellite. It's been there and back already. I mean, seriously. Just having fun with Dom while we're waiting. Oops, where'd it go? While we're waiting, just real quickly, it's important that segment 3 of the Con Ed is really important. Gail Anderson does a phenomenal job of answering a lot of really tough questions from Greg and Paul, myself, Eric, Kim, and so on. So I really hope that you will pay special attention to that because she does a really great job of addressing these kinds of specific issues. For example, the time is of the essence. Time is of the essence contract. West Michigan Regional Purchase Agreement is not a time is of the essence contract. It doesn't say anywhere what the consequences are if you meet the end date. If you read it carefully, it doesn't say that the deal's off, the money's dead, somebody gets the money, okay? Now, GCAR does. GCAR actually has a line in their contract that says that this is a time is of the essence contract and that anything, if any dates are missed, then the deal's off. Well, Gail will point out to you in the Con Ed that even that boilerplate language of GCAR is probably not enough if there is some intent shown by both parties to move forward, even though an extension hasn't been granted and so on and so forth. So the time is of the essence contract is important, but I would probably spell it out, make it clear what the consequences are for missing deadlines. And Tim's answer is, I'm really not sure. I think they're just upset because we don't want to buy the house anymore. Well, yeah, but I rest assured that if you make it clear that if you take this issue to small claims court and the loser pays in small claims court, it might encourage that seller to let go of the money because they will realize that they don't have a case and they might end up paying more in damages for not releasing the earnest deposit when they should have than they will if they just simply did it now. So, it's 1:31. I appreciate you all. I hope that helped a little bit. Gave you some answers to questions you might have, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for joining.